want to be remembered, and I thought his answer, of course, was just perfect. He goes, I want to be remembered as being a good teammate, respected by all the coaches and my peers. I want everybody to know I love the game of football.
And the Denver Broncos have taken Super Bowl 50.
Beer, Broncos, and
Hello
no BS.
again, Broncos country.
Welcome
Really
to
excited
Beer,
to chop up some
Broncos,
Broncos.
Orange Weekly. No politics, just football.
Since an early age. Not since 97, I ain't miss a game. Came up with TD and Rod Smith. I was riding with the team when they got the chip. Before the Chevrolets and the Lobster. I remember Elway's helicopter. I remember. I'm telling you, that man was a monster. Way before he had his hands on the roster. Way before. He turned the Broncos to a powerhouse. So you know I got a shout out to Johnny. Elway, he important, man. He the reason that I'm always rocking on his man.
What is up, Broncos country? We are back again for another episode of Bourbon, Broncos No BS. My name's Kev Dan, and if you haven't seen this show before, grab some bourbon, some booze, some beer, whiskey, scotch, wine, whatever you guys want. Kick back, relax, start posting some comments, questions. I'm sure you guys got a lot to ask and a lot of stuff you want to talk about after the Broncos demolish the Texans in their own stadium. So we are on the road. It's our last road game of the year as we go out to Kansas City to beat another team who just beat the Pats this last weekend. So lots to talk about. I know you guys want to talk about Drew Lock. We're just going to get that out of the way. Before we do that, of course, I want to bring on good friend, Mr. David Slade. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Kevin. How's Broncos country doing out there?
Well, we got some good fans in here already. So Red Cloud, and I mean, after a win,
feeling good right now.
everyone's good. Everyone's doing well, right?
Yeah,
let's see. Ryan is saying
I
who.
am, so it's been fun watching them the last couple weeks. So hopefully it continues.
That's what I'm hoping, man. Ryan is saying who said the Broncos would win? Oh yeah, that's right, me. So good on you, Ryan. You were right. A lot of us, I think all of us here at Orange Weekly picked the Texans to win. Not saying that we didn't have faith in the Broncos, but the cards were stacked against us. Now, of course, if you put money on the Broncos to win 38 to whatever, 23, or be up, even score more than 24 points, you probably made a ton of money. But of course, Dave, here we are once again. After winning 2 games, beating a couple really good teams. I mean, the Texans are playoff bound, and we are going into play Kansas City. I think we all remember what happened the last time earlier this year. So, Dave, do you see any repeats of what we saw earlier?
I am barely hearing you, Kevin. You're
All right.
sort of.
How about this? Any better?
There. Yeah. Can you repeat that question again?
Yeah. Basically, we saw the Chiefs demolish us last year after we had won 2 games. Everyone was really excited. And now here we are again, same position, 2 wins under our belt, heading out to play the Chiefs. And I'm wondering if there's any chance of a repeat.
I don't think it's going to be like it was last time. You know, we gave up 9 sacks in that game, and I just don't see that happening again. One, with the way we can take Drew Lock and we can roll him out of the pockets, you know, to avoid some of the pressure. Garrett Bowles has been playing better. He's had 1 penalty in the last 3 games, I think, and that was a borderline blocking in the back, you know, downfield on that touchdown run that got called back in the Houston game. He hasn't had a holding call in a while. He hasn't given up a sack in, I think, 4 games now. Now, on right tackle, Wilkinson in the last Kansas City game gave up 3 sacks. I don't see him playing as much as he's been playing. James played 52.5% of the snaps in the Houston game. And I see Denver hopefully boosting that up to maybe closer to 75%. And hopefully that solidifies the right tackle position a little bit. But I think Drew Lock's going to have to look for some hot routes to get the ball out of there quick, too, if they start bringing the pressure. And I think what he's shown so far, I think he's smart enough to realize that and pick it up and get his hot reads and get the ball out of there.
Yeah, Drew Lock did a fantastic job of throwing the ball, spreading the ball out to, I think it was 11 different receivers, if not 10. And I mean, just people catching the ball. They had no idea who to cover. You could double cover Cortland Sutton, but somebody's going to be open. And it was fun to watch. Drew Lock was out there having fun. He was doing well, and he was having fun. Here's my worry. The Chiefs are fighting really hard to get a bye week. Top-notch, number 1, number 2 place in the AFC. They're definitely not out of that race. So you give Andy Reid a week to game plan against Drew Lock, and he has 2 games worth of Drew Lock film to watch. We're playing for, to gain a little bit of respect back, but the Chiefs have a lot to play for here. So here's where I'm thinking, we might be facing a very similar situation. We go out there and the Chiefs' terrible defense just finds a way to annihilate our offense.
And that is a possibility, but I just maybe I think I'm being a little too optimistic here, but I think with as mobile as Drew Lock is, he can cause them to slow that rush down, and hopefully he can make some plays with his legs, and that's going to make them slow down and keep some people at home to watch him so he doesn't roll out and get those 10, 15-yard runs, that is going to move the chains. And that's what we need to do against Kansas City. We need to move the chains, keep them on the sideline, and get their defense tired, wear them down. We need to try to run the ball. I know we got away from it last time and the game started getting away and you sort of change your game plan, but I like the way we're game planning things now, and hopefully, we got some more tricks up our sleeves that Scangarella hasn't shown yet, and I think Scangarella is opening the play more and more every week when he's seeing Drew Lock get comfortable.
Yep. I think that's exactly what it is Drew Lock's getting comfortable, and I want to get to some of these comments here. I don't want to throw you guys off here. Travis, how you doing? Jeremy says, what's up, guys? He's locked up, and go Broncos. Travis, we're doing well tonight. I appreciate it. Travis has a good question. Let's see. Before we do that, Jack really quickly says he knows that we have a 1% chance of making the playoffs. What do we think? Any hope? And I'm going to say would you make a bet of any kind if you had a 1% chance of winning? I mean, I don't even play the lottery, but maybe some people do. No, there's no hope for that. We can talk about that more a little later. But Travis is asking, what do we think about the offensive coordinator Scangarello staying here next year? And David, you just touched on it just a little bit. Scangarello is opening up the playbook. Now, I know we're seeing some confidence in Drew Lock, but these are plays that are not new. They've been in his playbook all year. So is this something that we can continue to expect from week to week?
I honestly, I think it is, because I think that Drew Lock allows the offense to open up a little bit more. He's a lot more mobile than Joe Flacco was. I don't think they really pushed Brandon Allen as hard as they could have as far as opening up the playbook. They were pretty much using the same plays, and I really didn't see him opening up the playbook until I think after we jumped out to that big lead in the Houston game, and he said, hey, guess what? This kid could handle this, so let's see what else we can give him. And I think that's where you saw a couple times where he kept looking down at the wristband that he's wearing, and he seemed like he was confused. And I think these were some of the plays that probably weren't talked about much in the game planning process. So I think they room for a looper. Chell sat here a couple weeks ago, and we had our doubts, wondering what the Broncos were doing down there, and wondering why they wouldn't play him, and did they not like him, and was he not catching on? But I think Drew Lock has, answered a lot of the critics' questions, as far as, is this guy just not understanding and grasping this offense? So I think that Scangarello can now open it up a little bit more. You got to remember, Scangarello is a rookie at this too. So I think he's a little conservative at times. And I think now everybody sort of realizes we're in new territory. Yeah, we got a 1% chance of making the playoffs, like you said. Who's going to bet on that? None of us in this room probably is going to lay down a bet that we're going to make the playoffs. So maybe they've sort of told Scangarello, let's be a little more aggressive with our offensive play calling now and see what Drew Lock can do. Because we've seen two games. He was okay in the Chargers game. He played really good in the Houston game. Now he's going into Kansas City, which is probably one of the toughest places in the NFL to play. And then for a rookie to go there, and he's going back to his hometown, so he's probably going to get harassed by those fans big time. So we got to see. I mean, who knows what's going to happen these next 3 weeks? He may backslide or something. So we all just they got to push him as hard as they can to really figure out what we have in Drew Lock. Myself, I think we got a future quarterback, but we're going to find out even more this Sunday when they go into Kansas City in the Arrowhead.
Yeah, Red Cloud says it perfectly. This game is a divisional test for Lock, but with him behind center, our O-line is a bit more lethal. And some I've said multiple times before. I mean, I'm not trying to compare Drew Lock to Peyton Manning, but the idea of the mobile quarterback, or the quarterback that can just read the defense like no other. The offensive line doesn't have to be great as long as you have a quarterback that can mitigate a average or below average offensive line. It's exactly what Peyton Manning had. Now, obviously, he didn't have the mobility factor. He had the brains and the genius factor behind it. But here you got Drew Lock, who has called a couple audibles. It's worked for him more often than not, especially in that first touchdown to Cortland Sutton last week. Against the LA Chargers there. But he can still mitigate that offensive line by moving around. And I think this is why you're going to see Garrett Bowles look a little bit better. The pressure isn't on him so much to protect a guy that's not moving. And so, yeah, we saw the 9 sacks the last time we played the Chiefs, but I just don't think we're going to see that kind of, just absolute embarrassment from this Chiefs defense on our offense. However, like you said, playing in Kansas City and Arrowhead, and if my friend who watches these shows, who's a Chiefs fan, is probably agreeing with me, that is going to be an incredibly big test. And I don't know, David, if Drew Lock goes out there and struggles, What is your take going to be on him after that? And everyone watching, I want to hear the same thing. I know people are all excited about Drew Lock right now, but what if he goes out there and struggles? What are we thinking?
Well, I think if he goes in there and he struggles, and he won't be the first quarterback, even a veteran quarterback, to go in there and struggle. So I don't think we can be too harsh on him if he goes into Kansas City and he struggles. Now, if he goes in there and struggles, and then the last 2 home games against Detroit and against the Raiders, he doesn't, rebound back and have the good games that he should have against those 2 teams, then you got to start asking the questions. But I honestly think that, I think he's going to go in there and have a good game. I don't think he's going to have a game like he had in Houston. I hope he does, but I think he's going to have a good game. He'll probably make a mistake or 2, but what I like about Drew Lock is every time he's made a mistake, he stands up there at the press conference, he owns that mistake, and he says he's going to go watch the film and he's going to get better. And let's see if he does, if he's learned from some of these 2 interceptions that he's thrown in his first 2 games, if he's sort of understanding coverages more. But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of disguised coverages and blitzes and everything else that Kansas City is going to throw at this kid to see what he can handle.
I like what Joel says here. Joel, I can't blame you. Joel is all in on Lock. He's bought his jersey. The jersey is shipped. He says he saw something in him that I haven't seen in any QB after Manning. He sees the J color arm with a Tebow swagger to him. And that is, if anything has stood out about Drew Lock, it's how much he's having fun out there. I mean, we call Trevor Siemian all calm, cool, and collected. I mean, then you get all these other guys that come in and just don't have any passion. Joe Flacco, 0 passion. And we have Drew Lock out there who is just clearly having fun and doing it well. And he's making good plays. He's making smart reads. The biggest thing I had against him in the Chargers game was he was checking down a lot. But this last week, that was completely gone for the most part. I mean, he took probably 5, 6, 7 hits, but made passes. He stood there, he took the hit, but he made the good throw. And this is the kind of improvement that I want to see him make every week. So was there anything you saw in Drew Lock from this previous week, David, that you think he could probably improve on a little bit?
I think what Drew Lock, one of his downfalls that may hurt him, and I'm not going to say it's going to be something that's going to ruin his career. He's sort of like a Brett Favre mentality, and he has this overconfidence with his arm strength. And he threw some balls, and I mean, yeah, they made it through. I mean, like that touchdown to Fant in the end zone, where he just lasered that ball right past the linebacker. I mean, he sometimes he's going to have to reel that back and say, you know what? I know I'm sitting here saying in my head that I can put this ball in there, but there's going to have to be times, sort of like that interception he threw down the sideline when there were 2 guys there. I don't know if he didn't see that safety coming over the top, or he just thought he had the arm strength and he could just zing it in there and beat the defender. So, I think that's the only thing that I've seen. I like how he stands in the pocket. After he got hit a couple times, he didn't get happy feet, I mean, yeah, he can still work on, learning how to move around in the pocket, to avoid a little bit of pressure and things like that. But that's going to come with experience. But everybody needs to realize, too, where this guy played college football and he played in the SEC, where, that's high quality football there, So he's playing against, pro caliber teams, almost all the time. And he had decent stats when he played at Missouri, even though he wasn't on great teams. He still had decent stats, and he played good against some of these tougher defenses. So I think college prepared him for it, but now I think he needs to learn a little bit more, and he'll keep growing, I think. But I have faith in him that, as long as we don't try to push him too fast, and just let's spoon feed him this playbook and this game planning, and let's see how he grows the rest of this year. And then next year, during the offseason, OTAs and everything else, we go full bore, And I think we have a starter for hopefully the next 10 years or plus.
Hopefully. Red Cloud says, I would not be surprised if he did struggle in Kansas City. And I think we can look again. I don't want to be, the negative Nelly in the room, but Kansas City is such a different environment than the Texan Stadium. This is the loudest, if not one of the loudest stadiums in the NFL. And these fans, Chiefs fans are, look, I can't stand the Chiefs. But Chiefs fans just love good football, and they will get loud just because they're at a football game. It doesn't matter how the team's doing. Now here, the team's doing very well for them. So they're going to be all sorts of hyped up as they get ready for a playoff run.
Especially after coming off a win against New England.
Exactly. And I think if you look, I think the Texans, after beating New England, they said, oh, the 4-8 Broncos are coming to our place. We're going to be fine. And by sleeping on us by any amount, we saw what happened. And I just do not see the Chiefs falling for that trap. One thing that, hey, if I'm Andy Reid and I'm trying to find a flaw in Drew Lock, there's one glaring thing that I saw from the past 2 weeks. If you just watch his head, he looks at the person he's trying to throw to every single time. He does not take his eye off that person. So if you want to have an idea where that ball's going, you just have to watch his eyes. And that's what happened with that interception is he didn't look around the field. He saw what he thought was a one-on-one matchup and did not see that safety coming across the other side of the field there. And so that's one thing that I think is going to Drew Lock's going to have to learn from. Hopefully he learns from it before throwing some more interceptions. But his eyes, no pun intended, get locked on to the receiver he plans on throwing to. And he has the arm to put it there, but from a defensive perspective, that's got to be really easy to read.
Yeah, he needs to get better at looking as the defense off, especially when they got safeties that are playing over the top. He needs to get better at looking those guys off, so they're not so convinced as to where he's going with the ball. And I did notice that as well in the last 2 games that he does do that quite frequently. And he's only going to learn with time.
Yeah, completely agree. And look, I'm okay with letting him make those rookie mistakes now. I'm okay if they push him because the more mistakes he makes, the more he's going to learn and get ready for this next offseason. Really quickly, let's see what else we got. Gregory says, I think they should have simply put the playbook more in benefit for Locke. As you see Sunday, we're struggling with getting the play. I kind of agree. It's getting better now that we have that. Cassidy says, I think putting Locke in has changed the whole attitude of the team. The team was having fun, and you could see that in the way they played, both offense and defense. Cassidy has talked about making those rookie mistakes. And I think we can all agree. I mean, Jason makes a good point in saying Peyton Manning in 1998 in his first season had 28 receptions. So again, not trying to compare him to Peyton Manning, but as long as he improves, I'm going to keep backing him. As soon as I see him get stagnant or regress, especially after teams start to figure him out, that's where I'm going to get even more skeptical. But right now, 2 weeks in, I think there's a lot of positives, David.
Oh, I did too. And I think, that's what, everybody is looking at here now. How is he going to grow from week to week, and that's going to be the telltale of whether he's really the answer to our quarterback problems or not. And if he is, then that allows us to, go out and change our drafting philosophy next year because we have a lot of other holes that we need to fill. So if we can go out and we can nab a cornerback or an offensive lineman, with our first round pick, it would be better for us if we don't have to do that. I saw earlier somebody asked a question too about Scangarella and if he's safe, and I think you need to leave him here. I know a couple weeks ago I said that Scangarella might be a scapegoat, but I think just for continuity, they need to leave Scangarella here, and let's not change our offense again. Let's bring him back and let him and Locke grow together.
there's been so much turnover on the coaching staff alone, not to even include the quarterback turnover since Super Bowl 50, that we have got to stick with some sort of coaching staff. And I think even if we were still struggling, as easy as it is to say, let's get rid and bring somebody else, and now you're bringing a whole nother playbook. These players, these young guys, have got to have some sort of continuity. And now hopefully if Locke continues to perform the way he is, it's going to alleviate all the pressure off of Scangarillo, and we're going to have a lot of good things to look forward to in the next couple of years as the coaching staff develops as well. Ryan does make a comment a little bit ago. It says the Kansas City defense is worse than the Texans. Locke will be just fine. And my comment to you, Ryan, if you're still watching, is we said the same exact thing going into the last time we played the Chiefs earlier this season. The Chiefs had the 32nd, David, I don't know where they're ranked right now, but the Chiefs had the 32nd worst, the last place in the NFL when it came to a run defense. And we could not even break 100 yards rushing. I think total it was like 60-some yards rushing or something atrocious. The defense, the Kansas City defense, just obliterated us at Mile High. And so to say that, well, the Chiefs' defense isn't very good, we're going to be fine. Well, I just can't believe that, David. If we're going to sleep on their defense, we're going to be asking for a very long and a very bad day.
I agree. We cannot sleep on their defense again, and we cannot come out with the same game plan that we had in Week 7 when we played them. That was just atrocious, and the offensive line, a lot to blame. I mean, 9 sacks. Come on, you can't give up 9 sacks to anybody and plan on winning a game. Now, if we can correct that, and I'm not sitting here saying that we're going to go into Kansas City and win. I mean, but who knows? Though, I didn't think we were going into Houston and winning either. But if we can go in there and make it a competitive game and not go in there and just get blown out, that's a good step for this team. Mm-hmm. All of us know we're not going to the playoffs, so but we need to look for little positives that show that this team is getting better under the coach's guidance and everything, and this team is growing, and the younger players are stepping up and making plays. So one, I don't think that they're going to have a defensive performance like they had. I still think they're going to come out and they're going to show Locke some things that Locke has never seen before, and hopefully, we can adjust. I mean, I'm still a little concerned about how we don't adjust in the games. We don't adjust coming out of halftime. We came out of halftime in the Houston game, and we didn't really adjust, and we got really conservative, and Houston sort of worked their way back into the game, and you don't want to do that. If you got your foot on the throat, just keep pushing, And so our defense also, I think, is playing a lot better than they were playing in Week 7. Yeah, we got some bad news on the defensive line. We just lost Draymond Jones. He's out probably for the year now with a high ankle sprain. So that means, I guess, Gossis comes in and plays a little bit more, and hopefully we can still, keep that interior defensive line rolling. But the line has been playing the defense as a whole has been playing really well. And hopefully Kareem Jackson goes out and has another game like he did in Houston.
Oh, man.
Because, man, that was an insane performance that he had.
Kareem Jackson was flying all over the field. And when I build the intro video for next year, I know the first video clip I'm looking for, and it's that fumble recovery handoff to Jackson when he runs down the field for the 80-yard touchdown. That's the number one clip. I might even put it in there 3 times for the intro video. That was the coolest thing I have seen all season. But it wasn't just that play. I mean, the interception, all the tackles he made. This guy, and this is the guy that struggled the last couple years. And now here he is just playing phenomenally. And the whole defense, like you said, has been as well. So, there's a lot of good things to look for on the side of the youth. And this is, again, something once we went 0-4, I knew we weren't making the playoffs. That just wasn't going to
Right.
happen. But my goal for this team was to see us at this point of the season and be playing closer to or like a playoff caliber team. And if looking back to this last week game against the Texans isn't an indicator that these guys can play like a playoff team, then I don't know what is. So as long as, again, I don't care if they lose, and Nicholas says the same thing, as long as Locke looks good like he did against the Texans or plays well throughout the game, I don't care about the win-loss record. I just want to see these guys play like a playoff team so we can take that momentum and that confidence going into next year.
Oh, I agree. I mean, and that's something that this team needs is just win or lose, go out there and, like you said, play like a playoff caliber football team and go out there and make Kansas City earn a victory against us. You know, let them remember that, oh, yeah, we played the Broncos and they came in here last year and really, you know, gave us a fight. You know, that's the things we want teams to think of next year. You know, we got 2 divisional games left. We can sort of make our mark or make a statement within the division, say, you know what, this team is not going to be a doormat, and we're going to challenge for the division. And I think that's the attitude that this team has. And I also think a lot of these younger players stepping up and playing so good, maybe we'll get a couple of these veteran players that say, you know what, I want to stick around here. I want to see how this thing ends. You know, maybe a Derek Wolfe gives us a hometown discount to stay for another year or two. I don't know about Chris Harris Jr. I don't know if we've burned the bridges with him with how the whole thing was handled before the season started. But, you know, but maybe we can get some of these other players like Justin Simmons and players like that say, I want to stay in Denver. I don't want to go somewhere else. You know, and if we can build an attitude showing that we're going to be a really good team next year by the way we finish this year, then hopefully we'll get some of those players to re-sign here.
And that was somebody else asked earlier about where was it? Do we think Chris Harris Jr. is a weakness on the defense? And you know, he's just getting that point where look, you go back to Champ Bailey. I love Champ Bailey. I think he's one of the first Broncos jerseys I ever had, and I still have a Champ Bailey jersey now. But his last 2 years here, he just could not keep up with those young guys, and we're starting to see that now with Chris Harris Jr., where he's getting beat just a little more often than normal, and it's getting worse throughout the season. And then you couple the weird comment earlier this year he made after we went 0-4 of saying, "Oh, I only got a certain number of weeks left here," and so unless he's willing to take that hometown discount, I just don't think he is, because he knows his time's coming up, and if some team's going to pay him the big bucks for a couple more years. Heck, if I was in his position, I'd do the same thing, because after this, I'm not going to be making millions of dollars every year.
Well, and that's why I think, you know, Drew Lock's progression over these last 3 games is really important. That way, I think we need to go and get one of these with our first pick. We need a plug and play cornerback. You know, you got the guy from Ohio State who's a stud. You know, you got Christian Fulton from LSU who's a guy who can just – these guys are guys that can step in and play day one, you know, and we're going to need to spend our first pick getting a corner in here, because more than likely, even if Chris Harris stays, he's not your number 1 anymore. The guy's lost a step. Look at the way Hopkins blew by him on that long touchdown in the Houston game. He's just lost a step. I mean, and nothing wrong with him. And I'm like you. I love Chris Harris Jr. I think he's been a great Bronco. And, you know, it'll be sad to see him go if he does go, but he's not a premier cornerback, in my opinion, anymore.
Yep. And it sucks to say it, because he's such a huge part of, you know, the Super Bowl 50, you know, defense, the amazing historic defense that we had. But these guys get older, and it's what happens. So if he's willing to take a pay cut and not be the starter necessarily throughout the entire season, so that we can get this new guy that hopefully, depending on how we draft, how the season goes, whatever new cornerback we have can start taking the reins there. But again, that's going to be something we really have to watch in free agency. And really quick, guys, once again, my name's Kev Dan. I'm joined here with David on Bourbon Broncos No BS. So if you haven't already, still got some time left, grab that beer, bourbon, booze, whatever you want. Kick back, relax, and we're glad you're here with us tonight. Also, don't forget about our other content we have for you guys, our pregame podcast, our postgame podcast. You guys can listen to those on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, wherever you like listening to your podcast. You can find us there. Monday nights, we usually have our Orange Weekly After Dark show. Every Tuesday night, we try to do this show, Bourbon Broncos No BS. We also got a pregame show. We got a halftime hash show. Guys, we got you covered. And I think what's going to happen, David, I don't know what you think about this, but I fly back into Denver after a trip early Sunday morning. So we might be doing the pregame show from Mile High. I know the game's not being played there, but I think it'd be cool to do a pregame show right outside of Mile High.
That would be a pretty cool thing to do, as long as it's not snowing and 20 degrees out.
Oh, see, I've lived in the South for the last 8 years. I need to catch up on all that snow I missed. So I'm okay with it.
Okay.
We'll see how bad it is. But yeah, guys, so check that out Sunday morning, probably 10 a.m. Mountain Time. I'll be live from Mile High as we get ready to play the Chiefs. Get some more comments here. We got Iron Mike in the house. He says, we need to see this team show a 3-game 3G experience, guts, grit, and growth. David, do you see any problems in any of those 3 areas that we might be lacking on going forward in the last 3 games of the year?
I really don't. And this is going to sort of, what I'm going to talk about here is going to sort of tie in with a comment that Ryan mentioned. And he said, are we keeping Gumballs, which is Garrett Bowles, are we still moving on from him? And, since Flacco has gone out, I have seen marked improvement in Garrett Bowles. The penalties have gone down. The sacks have gone down. When you have someone who's a statue like Joe Flacco standing back there, it's hard for these guys to hold these blocks that long sometimes. And now you got someone like Drew Lock who can get outside of the pocket and move around. That takes a little pressure off these guys. So I think people like that can grow. We got Juwan James, who hopefully he's gotten over his mental issue of being afraid of going out there and re-injuring his knee. He did play quite a bit in the Houston game, so hopefully he continues to grow on that. We got, we got Reisner at left guard. I think he's going to be someone that's going to help that line grow. So I think that line can grow even with what we have. Maybe we go out in free agency and we replace someone like Ron Leary, at right guard, and maybe we don't want to re-sign Connor McGovern and we bring in another center. But I think this team has the grit. They showed the toughness, and I think Reisner is going to show that toughness on the offensive line. He's going to be the leader of that offensive line. I just really think that this team has the ability to do those 3 Gs, and go out there and grow and have grit. And I think that we're going to see this team grow over these last 3 games.
Yep. I mean, we need to. I think as Broncos fans, we've sat through so much crap the last 3 years now that we deserve to see that. And, it goes back to when, we were both at the Chargers game a couple weeks ago, and over 19,000 fans that bought seats did not show up. And I think it's time. We've sat through all of this, and now there's another flicker of hope. And I think this is why I'm still being so cautious about it, is we heard the same thing from Trevor Siemian, Brock Osweiler, Paxton Lynch, oh gosh, we got Flacco. And I know Jared started throwing stuff at the room, across the room in anger after we got Joe Flacco. People were like, oh, Super Bowl winning, Super Bowl MVP quarterback coming to Denver. Case Keenum, this guy's going to really, be a consistently just a smart quarterback for us. And so all these guys have come through with the promise of each and every one of them as, being able to help the Broncos get back onto our winning ways. And here we are again with the same thing with Drew Lock. And if you remember, 2 weeks ago, David, we were all up about the other quarterback, the backup.
Brandon Allen.
Everyone, I mean, we had comments on the show, David, of people going, is Brandon Allen going to be the next starter for the Denver Broncos? He's going to be our guy. Players said, Brandon Allen is bringing this spark to this team that only he can bring. And then we saw what happened. So here we are yet again, David. So if you're watching and you're judging me for being so cautious and not really ready to jump on that Drew Lock train, it's because I've been here 6, 7, 8 times by now, and I'm just tired of getting my hopes up just to have them smashed within a very short time period.
And I see what you're saying, and I see where you're coming from. And yeah, since Manning left, it's been a long string of broken dreams and promises and everything else. But one thing that I've seen from Drew Lock that I did not see in any of those other players was the attitude and the swagger that he has. Agreed. He walks out there with confidence, and even the other players have gone out there and said he has confidence and beyond what a rookie should have, and he goes out there, and I think he's a true leader. I think he's just going to continue to improve. Who knows? Maybe we all will be wrong, and we'll be back to square one. But I hope not. I really like what I see in Drew Lock. I used to do a different podcast, and before the draft, I told my son the best quarterback in the 2019 draft is Drew Lock. Okay. And everybody slept on Drew Lock because he played at Missouri. But I watched a lot of his football games, and I saw what he did and the ability he has, and I wanted the Broncos to take Drew Lock, so I was happy when they got him in the second round. When they didn't take him in the first round and they took Noah Fant, I said, what are you guys doing? Because I thought there was no way that Drew Lock was going to be sitting there in the second round, and we got lucky, and we got the quarterback that I think was the best quarterback in the draft. And I think over time it's going to prove it.
Let's see. We got, the good thing, the really cool thing about this show and Orange Weekly, David, I love it, is we can talk about something. I can give my thoughts. You can give your thoughts. And the people watching, they can disagree with us. And It's this conversation we have back and forth. And the reason I say it is, several of these guys are sitting here saying, you can't compare Allen to Lock. The talent isn't even close. Travis believes in Drew Lock. Other people, Kamani, I think, is saying he believes in Drew Lock. Travis is jumping on the train. Joey says he's been on the Drew Lock train even when everyone was doubting him. And man, I've just had my heart broken so many times in the last 3 years that I just, you know what? I'm going to keep it closed for the time being because I just can't be hurt again. But it's cool that, hey guys, if you haven't seen this show before, if you disagree with us, that's perfectly fine. If we disagree with you, we're not going to call you an idiot or anything, but that's the conversation we want to have with you guys. And that's why this show is so fun.
Right. And I'll show my age right here, but I remember in 1983, we drafted a certain individual, and the first couple games that quarterback played, he was horrible. And we're like, where's this guy coming from? I mean,
before you say the name, I want to see if anybody else knows who you're talking about, but keep talking.
And he took the team to how many Super Bowls? So, Locke is going to make rookie mistakes. Yeah. Let's let him have the chance.
Yeah, completely agree. And look, I'm sitting here being cautious about Drew Lock. Look, if he goes out this next game and totally bombs, I am not going to come on the next show and say, I told you so. Drew Lock is a failure. He's a total bust. No. He's going to have those bad games. Even next year, he's going to have his bad games. But as long as we see him rebound from those and learn those lessons and grow from those mistakes, but it's when we see him have 2, 3, 4 bad games in a row, making the same mistakes over and over and over again, which knock on wood, we don't see that. But once I see that, that's when I'm going to start saying, I don't know, this could be another repeat. But
Right.
so
And
let's
I
let's
agree
go
with
through the
you
growing pains with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and everyone needs to remember he's only going to get 5 games in this year, so next year is going to be almost another rookie year for him. The nice thing is he's going to go in 2 OTAs, 2 mini camps, 2 training camp as the number 1 guy. He's going to get all the reps. You know, I think that is going to help him as well. But remember, he's still going to be a rookie next year. You know, technically, yeah, he won't be a rookie, but he's going to only have 5 games under his belt, and there's going to be mistakes that are made. You know, you got veterans that still make dumb mistakes sometimes, you know.
Yep.
So, but I think with him going in and getting all the work in the offseason and everything, I think he's going to come out ready to go next year.
Agreed. And I like, let's see, Iron Mike. This is probably one of the best comments I've seen in a while. He says, she let you buy her a drink on the first time you met. On the second date, she said she liked your smile. 2 dates doesn't mean marriage, kids, eternal bliss, and happiness. It's a good start, and it might work, but it's not a guarantee of anything. And I think that is the idea, the mindset that everyone needs to have right now. Be excited and enjoy it, but look, if you're ready to jump on the Drew Lock train, go for it. I am not going to tell you to hold back. Enjoy it to the max, but I know that, look, I'll admit, after the first 4 games of Trevor Siemian's season there, and we were, I think, 3-1, I bought a Siemian jersey. And you know what? Right after that, it started tanking. And so now and not just about buying the jersey, but now I'm just very cautious when it comes to getting overly excited about these guys. But I think Iron Mike there says it perfectly. Let's kind of move on from the Drew Lock conversation. I'm sure we're still going to have a lot of comments about him. We can get back to that later if we want. But David, other than the quarterback situation and other than the injuries, I think we kind of touched on, we need an offensive lineman, a cornerback. But if there's a glaring issue that we really need to tackle in this offseason, and I know, guys, if you don't know, Dave here is not only our newest host here at Orange Weekly, but he's our college football expert. So when we get to the draft and everything, David's going to have some really good insight as to what to expect from the draft. But what is your mindset right now? Where are some of the biggest issues on the team that we really have to address either through free agency or the draft?
I think definitely a number 2 wide receiver.
Okay.
Deshaun Hamilton has just, he's too inconsistent, and who knows, maybe he'll eventually grow into nice, third receiver, slot receiver, something like that. But we need somebody opposite of Cortland Sutton. Maybe a speed guy like Judy out of Alabama. The guy's going to be gone high, though, so you need to decide if you want to pick a wide receiver with your first pick or if we want to go defense or offensive line. But and I think there will be some free agents that will be available that we could look at as well. But I think there's going to be a lot of talent coming out in the wide receiver position in the draft, so we should be able to pick up somebody, in second, third round, somewhere like that. I would like to see another tight end. I like the way Fant is growing, but I'm not 100% sold on him yet, and I'm definitely not 100% sold on Hireman. He just seems to be so injury prone. So we'll see how that goes. And I think we're going to need some interior defensive line help. We get Chubb back next year, which is going to be good. So with Chubb and Von Miller, we still have our outside guys, but I think we're going to need some help in the interior of the defensive line. And another linebacker. I said this in our group chat the other day. Todd Davis is just so slow to react. He's slow to fill holes on runs, and people are popping by him. I would like to see somebody else to come in there and complement Alexander Johnson. Another strong inside linebacker, and I think then we have a really good linebacking core.
I think, and if you guys don't know, we were talking about this on our group chat earlier today as well. David, the other David, Team Snowball hat, looked up some of the draft numbers, and he said we have, I think it's close to 40 million, maybe if not a little bit more, going into this offseason. So we have a lot of draft capital, but one thing that I also want you guys to remember, at least from my vantage point, is it's going to take, assuming Drew Lock and everything really starts panning out and we start building a team, it's going to take 2 years, if not maybe 3, to really be able to acquire this talent, and hopefully a lot of it through the draft, but then let them develop as well. So, best case scenario, look, next year we'll talk about maybe the playoffs. The year after that, okay, we can be a playoff worthy team. 3 years from now, I could be seeing us like being the talk of making a deep playoff run. We have a lot of cards to play, and we have to play them right, David. But if we can finally get some consistency in the coaching staff, in the way the draft prospects that we get and develop, quarterback, these are the things that are finally going to lay a foundation for us to be competitive, seriously competitive again in a few years. Right,
and I think John Elway has 2 years left on his deal, I believe. Yep. I see him trying to get this team back into the playoffs and a force to be reckoned with in the playoff within those 2 years. So look for him to be very active in free agency, trying to get some more big names in here. And I think, getting showcasing Locke, and showing what he can really do will help us in trying to bring in some offensive threats, I think,
Sure.
Maybe getting another receiver, someone to sign as a free agent to say, yeah, I want to play with Drew Lock.
And I think that's great. My problem with John Elway this last year especially, maybe even last year, was his win now mentality. And I think that's part of the reason the last 3 years have been so rough, because he hasn't spent the time to really develop a team from the ground up. It's been, right, let's get back to it right now. Let's get back to the Super Bowl right now. And we didn't have the pieces to do that. And so you're bringing in the wrong sort of people who are Band-Aid fixes that can hopefully get you over the hump, and it hasn't worked. So even if, let's say next year we don't get in the playoffs, but we're close. We're 9-7, and we just barely don't make it. The year after that, his contract year, okay, now we're 10-6, and we're controlling the playoff picture, at least from a wild card setting. I'm okay with having him us re-sign him if we're not a force to be reckoned with in the next 2 years. But if I'm seeing him really develop a team that's going to last for the next 10 years, that's seriously going to be that force to be reckoned with year in and year out, I'm okay with extending his contract. I don't want to see any more of this win now mentality. I want to save that for 3 years down the road from now.
And I agree with you, and I think that's the way you should do it. Yeah, you can still be aggressive in the free agency, but you have to do it smart, and you have to draft smart as well.
Yep.
So if you're going to bring in some veterans, to sort of be a bridge until this younger talent develops, that's okay. But don't be bringing in, somebody that's going to set us back, because we think they're the answer, and then they come in and they can't even get on the field.
It's all about that mentality. It's being smart about it. So it's all about developing. And that's just something that we're really going to see what John Elway's mentality is after the draft. When we've gone through free agency, we've gone through the draft, we see who we acquired. I think that's going to give us a really good insight as to, is John Elway trying to get us back to the Super Bowl next year? Or has he finally gotten rid of that win now mentality and said, like you said, let's be aggressive, but let's really commit ourselves to building a team and putting in the time and effort over the next 2 to 3 years to really get this team to be young, but also experienced and strong. And that is what I want to see for this team. Another couple of years of not so great performance, but building up to it. And then in 3 years, we're going to be incredibly happy with the product that we have, as long as John Elway and company are smart about how they go about doing business.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think Elway maybe has this year really made him realize that we're not as close as he thought we were, and he has finally shifted off that win now mentality. So hopefully now he's into building a team to even if it doesn't happen while he's here, at least he'll know he laid the foundation for this team to move forward. And when somebody comes in, he can hand the keys over and say, "Here you go. Don't mess this up. In a couple of years, you're going to have yourself another Super Bowl contending team." So, and I hope that's the attitude that John Elway is going to have moving forward from now on, and stop with this win now, and don't try to convince the public that Joe Flacco's in his prime and things like that. So, Travis has a good question. Who do you guys see him being the backup behind Drew Lock next year? And maybe that's somebody we got to, in the 4th round or so, you go and you grab a quarterback as a backup. I don't know, unless Brandon Allen's going to stay around as the backup. I don't know.
I mean, we've seen that Brandon Allen can be a temporary, placeholder. If we want him to start for an extended period of time, he's not that guy. But if you want a guy who has the experience to be able to go in and not lose the lead you have and not totally blow a game for you, but be able just to at least stay somewhat consistent through the rest of that game, Brandon Allen, I think, is that guy. And with how much those draft picks mean to us right now, I would, even if in the 4th round, 5th round, I would rather us pick somebody else up and either keep Brandon Allen or acquire another, maybe a little bit more experienced backup quarterback. But here's the thing, I know Drew Lock is getting these starts under his belt. But I do not want another situation we found ourselves in this year, where Joe Flacco goes out, our starter goes out, and now our backup and our injured, where we wanted to be backup, and Drew Lock have zero experience in starting NFL games. And so that's why I think, even though Brandon Allen didn't really completely fell apart in that 3rd game, he has that experience now on the field. And if we can keep him while allowing us to draft somebody else, I think that'd be the best case for next year, in my opinion.
Oh, I think it is too. And, he is a guy, if you need a replacement for 2 or 3 games, who could probably go out there and get you 2 wins, and that's really what you want for your backup. You don't expect your backup to come in and you end up better than you were with your starter, unless it's the Patriots when Bledsoe went down and Brady comes in, and we all know what happened there.
Exactly.
But I think Brandon Allen, I hope he would want to stay here and be the backup, but I don't know if he really views himself as a starting quarterback in the NFL or not. So, and he wants to go somewhere else to get a chance.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, man. But of course, guys, we're going to keep you updated and give you our thoughts throughout not only the rest of the season, but don't forget what we've done the last couple of years is we'll do a Super Bowl Tuesday before the Super Bowl show. We'll also do a show after the end of the regular season to kind of recap and kind of look towards the off season. We'll do a couple shows and podcasts during the free agency. We'll really ramp up and do a couple podcasts and shows for the draft. David's going to be a huge resource here for that. But then, of course, kind of take a break and stay quiet on our side up until preseason. That's when we're going to start ramping up. So even though it's the off season, guys, we're still going to be here for you. So I'm going to be on this week's pregame podcast with the other David. So I'm not going to give my score prediction. But David, here we are. Quick recap for everyone, if you forgot already. Broncos have won 2 good games the last 2 weeks, and we are heading towards playing Kansas City. Earlier this year, very similar situation, and the Chiefs' horrendous defense absolutely showed us up. Only key difference that I'm seeing here is, one, we're on the road to Kansas City, and now we have Drew Lock versus Flacco, who's just going to stand there like a stump. But so with all that, David, what are your thoughts as we head into this Kansas City game, and what's your score prediction, man?
Couple things. One, playing outside in Kansas City. I mean, it's not like Houston. It's not a controlled environment. You're going to be out there. It could be windy. It could be cold. I don't know what the weather.
I'm going to look it up right now.
For that right now, like you mentioned earlier, Kansas City is playing for something. Kansas City is playing for a first round bye. They just knocked off the Patriots. They don't want to have to go. They don't want to have to go back to New England and play a playoff game. So if they can keep winning, and Patrick Mahomes is probably going to play this whole game. I know he had an X-ray on his hand I think yesterday, and everything came back negative, and they said everything's fine. So I just don't think that we're going to have the firepower to match their offense. And I see Kansas City winning this game probably 27 to maybe 16, somewhere around there.
Okay.
So we may have a chance late, and then, they sort of pull away from us. But a break here, a break there, it could be a competitive game, and we could pull an upset. But unfortunately, I just don't see it. I see Kansas City winning this one, going away at the end.
Agreed. As for the weather, guys, it looks like it's going to be a high of 30. Overcast, cloudy skies, light wind, about 7 miles an hour or so is what it looks like. So not terrible playing conditions, but it's going to be cold. Thankfully, us being from Denver, we our players are used to it. So, David, I appreciate everyone else who's watched and hung out with us tonight. I appreciate it. Of course, again, check out our pregame and postgame podcasts up on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and check out all our other shows and content we have for you guys. If you haven't done so already, hit that share button for me. Tell your friends and family about us, and so we can bring some more Broncos fans onto the show and chat with all you guys. David, appreciate it, man. I hope you have a good rest of your night, okay?
All right, you as well. Thanks, Bronco Country, and let's go Broncos.
Let's go Broncos. You guys have a good rest of your week, and we'll talk to you later. See ya.